Hello guys, welcome to the Trading Parrot. With the recent price action of Bitcoin, of course we need to do an update on SUI and see what levels are we currently respecting. We have a confluence of support coming in that I want to mention. I briefly want to touch base on the news on SUI, and definitely don't miss the part where I mention the two liquidation levels that are currently forming below the price. That is our current risk if things escalate in the short term. Guys, if you actually love the format about the altcoins in short, concise videos like this one that I've been doing since the past week, I will really appreciate, and it will be really encouraging to carry on doing the same. If you hit the like, write down a comment down below. So in terms of price action, SUI over the weekend did something that disappointed me slightly. I have to be very clear. With this correction in here from the very highs of over $5, we had an amazing green weekly candle in here that put the price back into 4.3. That is beyond the golden pocket, so it was a very bullish comeback. But with what we are doing currently with this retracement from the highs of $4.3, it's slightly a bit beyond where we should be going. Ideally, for the most bullish support, we should have stopped at around $3. That was a previous level of support that couldn't give enough support for the price for the comeback. By losing that $3 support, we went all the way to 1.7. And thanks to the puke that we just smelled from Bitcoin, SUI mimicked the action and it went all the way to $2.3. That, as you can see, is beyond the 2.7 that I gave you in my most recent update. This one here 4 days ago. Make sure that you follow these videos if you have specific interest on a coin. You can actually follow the playlist. If you go to playlist on my channel, you can strictly focus on the altcoins that you want to watch as well. So going beyond that level puts us in a slightly we shouldn't have gone that far situation. There are a few things that we can highlight that are still positive. For example, we are holding the $2.4 that is previous resistance before the largest green candle, right? So all of that was accumulation and we are above an area of accumulation. So that is slightly positive. If we want to try to read between lines to scratch the last bit of bullishness out of this, we can say, yeah, that is good. Number two is if we extend this and we connect it with the recent swing low, we cannot get a very accurate bounce there, right? If we connect body with body, this wick there went into 2.3 and perfectly bounced, now up 10%, which is nothing for SUI, of course, because SUI has retraced 46%. Some other things I want to highlight. From the highs, SUI can retrace 67%, as you can see in there. In here, it retraced 80% just before doing something magnificent. 1000% up is not a joke. So what I'm trying to say is that this is an asset that does big things. So I will consider this bounce in here making a lot of sense for many traders, and probably that's why there were orders in here waiting to rescue the price. What we need to do next with SUI is overcome the $3. $3 is a psychological level for SUI that is relevant all over the place. Everywhere you look, $3 has something to say, even in the past 2 weeks. So now if we come back, if we happen to bounce slightly higher and go into $3, we really need to be paying attention. I think for SUI, the scary levels that I want to check with you and run you on the liquidation pools are only doable if we break below this 2.38 level. I will say from the level where we are should be ideally the lowest level we go. Of course, Bitcoin can collapse thanks to escalations, geopolitical tensions and all of that, in which case it's totally doable. But with Bitcoin now bouncing back above the 100k, we need Bitcoin to behave. If Bitcoin stays around or over 100k, I will say SUI has one task: defend 2.38 as much as you can. You can go intra-week. Within this week, we can be even at 2.1, but we need to close the week above 238. Something else, I was very tempted to say that SUI was going to be able to replicate the same move up and down on the RSI for a third time. After all, during the second time, we spot the pattern and we traded mimicking this in this side, and that was fantastic for trading. But we have kind of broken the pattern because we were supposed to be bouncing in this way over a line until we get up and then we break and we start doing that. But with this bad boy in here that retraced quite deeply, still a higher low, but you know, it's multiple weeks in the breakout and the push up is so exhausted that I'm looking into a revenge rally into 58 in the near to short term, of course, if things go well. I am not necessarily expecting a rally from an area of disadvantage, which is after already having lost one level. That's just my 2 grains of sand. Let's look at the longs versus shorts, and you can see longs are coming back in this area, but not in the same way that shorts have been pushing the price down. We need a little bit more than that on the momentum on the longs versus shorts to confirm that this level is going to hold. I will say if you are too itchy, this price of 2.3 is a great opportunity to start building a position, but not before we look into those liquidation levels I'm going to show you, because that is your risk, and you do not trade without knowing what is your risk. After all, we are trading here, we are not gambling. Lunar Crash is showing a spike in interest, I suspect because of all the move down of the price. You can see here that the social dominance went into 1.85%, and the highest it's ever been is 2.1. We now need continuation up. Notice as well that the more attention, it means that you have a ratio higher in retail, right? And retail are short-term holders, they dump their bags and they get trapped constantly in the wrong place. So careful. Let's look at liquidation levels and let's appreciate that there was this head and shoulder in here that is kind of hidden within a falling wedge that was supposed to be a bullish pattern with a breakout from 3.2, but that completely puked to the downside, hitting the liquidations that were right below the price. We say that is an option. It is lower likely in a falling wedge to break down in this way, but well, there was some bombing going on and Bitcoin went below 100k and SUI just couldn't hold there due to the massive volatility of this asset. Notice as well that we are within prices that we are expected to move very fast. This area is full of fair value gaps and is slippery as hell, and that's precisely what happened. Once we broke below 2.7, we went straight to 2.2, clearing all the fair value gaps that were present in that area, clearing all the liquidity in here as well. The technical target of the head and shoulder is actually 1.59, and you might think, no, that's impossible. We're not gonna take the lows of 8th of April 2025, and I said I think it's low likely that we achieve the technical target, that we get there. I still think it is low likely, and now you see my point why we should be defending these levels where we are currently. Otherwise, we're gonna end up bending the rules and going into 159. Let me show you where is that risk coming from. Guys, I introduce you to the liquidation level at 1589 on SUI. A liquidation level that I think is low likely that we're gonna visit unless we enter into a bear market, but is the biggest that SUI currently have below the price. There are decent liquidations if we go to the compromise level of pinching $2, which is not that far really from the lows. That's a move of additional 12%, something that SUI can do in a fraction of a second. But what do we have there? Is it really worth going all the way to $2 now? Well, there is some liquidity to be taken there, particularly if we introduce 3x, we have a chunk at 2.1 and at $2. And that comes in precisely at that line of support that I was drawing before. And it could be a compromise because instead of completing the full technical target and hitting 159, we could just go there, pay a visit to that level and kind of revisit this old trend of hitting that trend line multiple times. We have done it 1, 2, 3, and that could be the 4th time, particularly if Bitcoin loses 100k again. And that's how close, you know, if we get a rejection on Bitcoin in the next few hours because something goes wrong, something escalates, well, Bitcoin is going to say, bye-bye, we're trying out over 100k, let's go to $2. And then we're just one step away from 159. So if you're looking to build a position on SUI for higher prices, if you're bullish, I will consider my first entry at $2-3, that level that we just pinched over the liquidity. Remember that I still stand my idea that below the head and shoulders, below every stupid neckline on any single altcoin, there is a chance that we are just grabbing liquidity, reclaiming neckline and heading for the upper liquidity, just like Bitcoin can do that. But that's too difficult, guys. No, it's not. You monitor when the price is hitting the liquidity, you enter with a position like I did yesterday and I published on my Patreon with Bitcoin. I didn't do it with SUI, but I could have done the same. Pretty much they are coupled assets. This one is just on 5x of Bitcoin. Then you go for this area and you see if things reclaim the neckline, and then you can target areas of 4.3, similarly to on Bitcoin 111. You chew very tight as soon as you get into $3.1 and you hope that you can get there with a trailing stop loss. Let's look at some news, and we got 2 bullish news for SUI and one that is actually bearish. Number one, coming in at 8 out of 10 bullish, Nasdaq files Form 19B-4 for 21 shares SUI ETF. Converts SUI into a potential regulated asset class for US institutions. That's an immediate 6% spike and 30% volume surge signal fresh buy flows. This was published yesterday on Sunday. We also got 7 out of 10 bullish. Total value lock on SUI leaps 41% with 173 billion as DEX volume increases 170%. Rising locked value and liquidity shows sticky capital entering the ecosystem, supporting sustainable demand for SUI rather than short-lived hype. And the bearish one is SUI daily technical outlook, resistance at 287, downside risk to 23. This was published today, and I wonder who is publishing this today, where the price went to 2.298. Unless I'm missing something, we already hit that level. I think the risk now is $2, as I mentioned, followed by 159. The upside continues to be to hit the highs once again. That is actually supported by getting a revenge rally into 58 weekly RSI. That brings the price into 397, which is not very far from the liquidity that is slightly above $4 and kind of ends at 4.7 if you want to know. Alright guys, I hope you appreciate the update. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.